Welcome to Getting Ghosted, an intuitive, soul collective podcast. I'm your host, Allie Horner. Hello, everyone. We are back. I am hoping that the recording works okay today. I had my computer died, and so I don't have my GarageBand on my computer to record with that I normally have, and I'm hoping that today's recording is sufficient and that it works. So bear with me. We're going to do our best today. And I hope that you guys enjoy this episode. Today, we are going to do some listener questions and stories. I have got the guides over here. Sam is in here really prominently, like sitting down, dusting off his boots. Eric's over here. I've got Joy popping in and skipping around. And it looks like they're ready to kind of channel and, give you guys some insights. And so I went through my submissions, which are all submitted through my website, all of these questions, all of these stories. And you can always submit your own on there too. I'm going back a couple months for some of these and some are more recent. And I just kind of picked a couple I was drawn to. Feel free to keep submitting your stories and submitting your questions that you have for the guides on whatever topics. We're happy to continue chiming in, and maybe you'll get selected for a future listener episode. And just a note too, if you ever decide you want to be anonymous, you can always just let me know in your message or your submission, and we will make sure that you're left anonymous. Okay. So this first one, it says, "Hi, Allie. I've been following you on TikTok and getting readings from you for at least a year. When I came across your page, I immediately resonated with you. I feel so grateful that I get to access all this knowledge because of you. So thank you. I'm so interested in the evolution and journey of a soul. Books like the ones by Dr. Michael Newton and Dolores Cannon were so exciting to read. I guess I'm interested in the mechanics of things. How soul groups come to be, how souls choose what they want to focus on in each life, the process of choosing a life that best fits them. In Journey of Souls, life as a spirit sounds a little like being a student attending school and being taught by different teachers. I'm sure it's more complex than that, and I know that there are no levels as a soul, but I'd love to hear about it. I'd also be curious to know how a soul knows it is their time to stop incarnating. I understand we'll never know exactly how things work because we are limited to our 3D bodies. Those are my questions. And by the way, I love your podcast. Thank you, Stella." And that was from Stella. And thank you so much for the very sweet and kind words. I'm going to hand this over to the guides and see what they want to give us on this today. Okay. So first and foremost, I see I've got Sam stepping forward here, and Eric's over here as well, but Sam is stepping forward he said profoundly. He always cracks me up, like his, how he kind of like focuses on things. The language he uses is so different at times. So he brought through a bunch of TikToks on this, a bunch of videos. And so if you're curious about a lot of this, he has a great TikTok series that we did on our page, and you'll be able to find them in the playlists on TikTok. So you'll be able to find that there. He said, well, so overall, just to kind of like answer your overall questions, he said, so from my perspective, the way I would say it is, there's a lot more choice than y'all think. And he said, things aren't exactly always grouped in the way that we think that they're grouped as. He said he's showing me humans like to have levels and groupings and labels and almost like sections. They like to put things in their compartments. They like to categorize things because we're in 3D. So we have a seemingly separated form. So we have objectivity, right? In order to have objectivity, you have to be able to observe something as separate from yourself, but nothing's ever really separate. So keep that in mind. And he's like, you guys are going to be kind of mind jumbled if we talk about it that way too much, but that's the truth of it. And he said, you're really not separate from anything or anyone, anywhere, any when. That's why some past life stuff isn't really just past life stuff. It's like kind of looping, and you all have essentially the same past lives, but for the sake of this one, we'll talk about it more in a singular manner. And he said, so when it comes to these types of questions, you kind of might drive yourselves a little bit nuts wondering about it. So we don't want you to get too much in your heads. But he said, let's kind of go more so to how souls choose what they want to focus on in each life. And he said, this is really sort of like there's an overall instrument that comes into play. It's kind of like he's showing them rolling the dice and it just landing. And he said sometimes it's kind of like that. Like we're just like, let's just see, let's roll the dice on it. Let's see what's going to happen. And he said, really, you have to think about this as it's not just an individual purpose, it's more of a collective awakening, a collective purpose. And so collective larger groups come into this lifetime and in, as a larger energy form and larger energy body. And they might say, okay, we are all here to be part of the shift or the larger awakening, right? That is like a fated thing. It's already happening. It's going to happen. It is in progress. And so there are souls that, we're all incarnating and we're like, oh, hell yeah, I want to do that. I want to be part of that. I want to see what that's like. But our individual places within that larger awakening and how we experience it might be completely individualized. And he's showing that being the rolling of the dice. He said, so there's often a lot less defined than people think. And he said, now some souls come in and they're a little bit more parsed out. They've got things a little bit more specified. And he's showing someone choosing their outfit. He said they're much more intentional. He said like there are aspects of consciousness that want to have a little bit more definition, but overall a lot of y'all are here to like there's certain like overall or overarching goals that you want. For example, something we mentioned on the TikTok live readings yesterday is a lot of people came to this lifetime for free will. A lot of them didn't get to have freedom of choice in previous lifetimes. Because of their race, their gender, their, a disability, something like that, societal and cultural programming, etc., gender norms, etc., their, sexual, like things about sexuality, etc. They weren't allowed to have the expression they wanted to. They weren't allowed to be who they actually were. They weren't allowed to use their choices as much as they wanted to. There were consequences for it. There were real repercussions. And so, threats to their lives. And so in this lifetime, he said, there's a lot of people who are here in this lifetime to have free will and free choice. He said, the irony is many of you are still so scared to use it, even though it's very much like there. You do have your free will. You do have your choice. There's no one stopping you on certain things. And he's saying it's understandable why a lot of you would be kind of concerned, upset about this, but we want you to remember and understand that you do have free will and you do have choice for a really good reason. And so that might be a larger overall collective mission. And he said, no, again, in terms of how people choose things that they want to focus on in each life, he's showing me other threads in their previous lifetimes and future lifetimes. And he said, we don't think about all of the lifetimes as so separate as you might on Earth. For example, you might not know what you're going to be doing in a future lifetime, whereas like from the soul's perspective, it knows a lot of that definition beforehand. And so it sees the current lifetime as a necessary process or step in that. So even though there's a lot of free will choice here, there might be overarching themes that come with us into a certain lifetime, right? And this can be collective and larger group consciousness wise. So within certain groups, there might be a collective awakening, for example, that comes around, or the big shift that we're having, and that many of us are going to be seeing. We've talked about future themes and things like that in previous episodes, so go ahead and go listen to those as well. And there's other channelers who have covered other pieces of those things that, I did not end up channeling on as much. So there's a lot of good stuff about things that we're kind of seeing as larger overarching generational themes coming in the future. And so, for example, some of us said, we want to come in for those larger themes, and that was the key thing. And so the roles we play within those larger group changes can be really unique. He said, for example, someone might come in and say, well, for example, this person wants to experience what it's like to use their voice. And someone else is like, yeah, sure, I'll help you with that. Now, they may not have a lot of definition around how they're going to help them with it. Like there might not be in those souls are like, sure, let's tag team on it. High five, man. And then they come in and it turns out the way that person's going to help them with using their voice in this lifetime is maybe there's someone who tries to take away that freedom from them. Maybe they fearmonger them. They try to convince them not to be themselves in this lifetime, not to show up online. Maybe they go as far as to silence them legally or try to silence them physically. And now that's not something a soul might plan before it comes in. That's where like that free will comes in. So sometimes there's an unconscious knowing of something that we're here to help someone else with. Sometimes people will say, well, we're here, let's help each other learn like deeper level to how to bring deeper levels of love into expression in this lifetime. And he's showing two people again, like high-fiving and putting their hands together and interweaving their fingers and being like, okay, here we go. Beam us up, Scotty. And sometimes they become antagonists for each other and, bullies toward each other, or they're always fighting. And so they're learning how to embody more and more love and overcome that fighting together. Maybe they both are best of friends or siblings and they're very much aligned, but they face a lot of oppression or adversity together, or they end up being born in a household where there's a lot of suppression and abuse and control dynamics. So that can be like part of it. And he said those things aren't necessarily things the soul would choose. Those are things that would happen because of the free will. Okay, this next one is a little bit of a story share. And I just thought, oh my God, what a cool story. So I'm going to tune in afterward with the guides and see what they want to say or share afterward. So this one says, hi, Allie. I love your podcasts. I went a good week listening through your episodes, specifically thinking of your spirit guide, Eric. I was having a human day with lots of sadness and hopelessness, and thought to myself, I wish I had an Eric, like in the sense of having a connection to my spirit team. The next morning, I had to Uber to work from the car shop because I needed to fix my AC. I called the Uber on my phone, and I'm just getting very low energy, kind of like a negative Nancy and just sad. I get in the Uber, and the man is a yapper. He says, car problems, huh? In my head, and I'm like, no shit, Sherlock. But I respond, unfortunately. He says, you going to work now? I say, unfortunately. He looks up at me in the rearview mirror, and we make eye contact. He says, that going to be your word of the day? But he had a sparkle in his eye, the kind of sparkle that lifted my energy and made me giggle a little. I didn't realize I was being so negative Nancy. I sit up to be a little bit more polite and engaged. We start talking, and he's telling me about these life journeys he's taken. He mentions Hawaii, South Dakota, and Montana. All of these places are on my bucket list. And I tell him this too. And he continues to tell me about his life adventures. I love this guy. He was so light and funny. He's missing turns to my work, but I don't say anything because our conversation is so fun, and I'm reminded of the beauty of being human. We get to my office, and he turns to me as I open the back door and says, hey, Cyrene, get going on that bucket list, okay? I smile at him, shut the door, and he drives off. I don't know how to explain it, but when he said the last sentence to me, he was sent here by my spirit team. I'm like frozen there in my work parking spot and open up my phone to tip him, and his name says Eric. My jaw was on the floor. The night before, I was thinking, I wish my spirit guide was Eric. I wish my team contacted me, and then this happened. Crazy. Thank you, Allie, and your creations, podcasts, and other things are so magical. I love it. And thank you so much for that, Cyrene. That was such a lovely, cool story. When I was kind of going through all of the submissions over the last couple of months, I read that one and went, no way. It kind of made me giggle because that is totally how the guides work. It's totally how the other side works. And that is just one of the ways that they kind of playfully let us know, hey, we heard your request, and I'm hearing the song, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. And I immediately felt Eric around, and he was like, see, it's kind of a way of letting you know, like, hey, like, you're gonna, when you don't feel like you can contact your guides, we're going to find another way. And so of course you had this Uber driver who happened to have the same name, who was kind of helping to pull you out of the funk. And he went to the 3 places that are on your bucket list to go to. And he was talking about all of his adventures. He was sent there as sort of like a guide in human form to remind you to get out there and live your life, to not hold yourself back so much, and to make sure that you are truly like living according to your values and your dreams, right? That you are moving that bucket list forward, and that you're not losing faith in the other side, or in that the fact that there is so much more support for you than you think there is. And I love when they play like this, with the names and stuff like that. That is one of the funny ways that signs and synchronicities really work. And, it's like when we have things like that happen, that is not a coincidence. That is absolutely our guides on the other side, like working with us and trying to show us like, hey, we've got your back. Just keep calling on us. We're right here. We hear you. We're not gone, and we will take any route to work with you, to help you and to reach you. Now, this last one was such a cool story share and submission, and this person actually reached out after the Anna channelings came out. And while I don't have Anna here today, because Anna, again, Anna is a future human. She's not a medical intuitive. She's not a psychic. She's not anything like that. You know what I mean? She's not a spirit guide, but I was getting the nudge to bring through my guides for this person's question. So I'm going to do that. This came through from someone named Alyssa. And she said, "Hi, Allie. I am loving the podcast. It's so insightful, and I look forward to my morning commute because of the podcast. So thank you. I'm glad that you like it. And yeah, I always love all of the kind words from everyone. Okay, so moving on. She said, "I'm studying to become a therapist and I'm interested in potentially specializing in trauma therapy. I've also heard about trauma being healed through Reiki, and I'm curious if that's something that is a place in the future of the field. Should I be looking into ways to incorporate more futuristic practices to make a positive change for my clients? This is also deeply personal for me and involves my family. I'm a triplet, and my two brothers and I all have medical issues. I have autoimmune issues, and they both have epilepsy and cerebral palsy. My brother has had it worse, and his seizures have become much more serious lately. He actually ended up in the ICU this past summer. Medications are limited, and we're now worried he may need brain surgery to get them under control. I know this is really personal, but I feel called to higher things like healing energy, and I want to know if my intuition is correct, that this could help others in similar positions. Is there any science that might eventually back up the potential for Reiki or anything else to heal the brain and help stop seizures? My two triplet siblings are my whole heart. We are deeply connected, and almost losing my brother was one of the hardest things I have ever gone through. He was so sick to the point that he said he was outside of his body with us watching him. He was in a prolonged seizure, which led him to be on a vent, go septic, get pneumonia, and many other things. He pulled through and has minimal issues since, but I am terrified something like that will happen again. He is so strong, such a fighter. I'd love to hear your perspective and Anna's and how you think a practitioner can balance these higher intuitive callings with the clinical work we do here and now. I feel deeply connected to something greater than myself and would love to hear this perspective for personal and professional reasons." Wow. Okay. So the guides were like kind of popping in as I looked through the submission. And again, thank you so much for sending in this question to Alyssa, who just sent this through in June. Now, one of the things that they're saying is it's going to be really, really worthwhile, very worthwhile to blend these two modalities together, the therapy work and the mental health work professionally with the energy work and healing. And I myself have also been looking at some of this and noticing a lot of what my guides have been bringing through for the last, 10 plus years, which is largely that these two fields are going to merge. We've already been seeing it. They were telling me it for a long time. Like I had, I don't know if you guys know this, but I actually was a psych major when I first started college, and I ended up shifting my major over to a different focus. And because I felt like I was sitting in these psych classes, I saw the hearts of everyone in there. Everyone wanted to do such a good job. I have friends who are therapists who are doing such a great job and want to do great jobs. And I knew instinctively that there were pieces missing, that this didn't feel right, and that I needed to go a different direction on my path for a little while. And I think I know what it is now. And I think I know partially because of my own intuition and my own spiritual guidance and my own path, but also because of what I've been hearing from my friends who are therapists. And it's that the psych field is long overdue, and mental health field is long overdue for a change. And so is our medical field, our field that works with, the diet, with nutrition, as well as more of the spiritual fields. These things are so compartmentalized. They're so siloed that we have had people getting diagnosed with things without any look into their hormones, whether or not they're going through trauma at home or in abusive relationships. We aren't looking at, what are their vitamins and minerals doing? Do they have a deficiency in something? Or are their hormones all messed up? Like, we are just like, looking at people and throwing diagnoses at them when they're just asking spiritual questions, when they're facing things like, what happens when we die and stuff like that. People asking questions like that doesn't mean that they're depressed or suicidal. It means they're curious. And also this is a big deal. We also have people who are like, we know that energy is everything and there's more going on than meets the eye. And why would there not also be Reiki that can come into these things? So what we've been seeing more and more is that these fields are beginning to blend, that more and more people are waking up to what is more of a holistic approach. And now there are actually a lot of programs in schools out there offering programs, psych degrees of varying concentrations, and master's degrees that do things that's more like integrated psychology, where you actually look at things by body, mind, and spirit, or body, mind, and soul. This is long overdue. Long overdue. I've even seen more and more programs where they're bringing in the study of intuition, epigenetics, things like that. I know someone personally who took a program at Columbia, which is an Ivy League school, and her master's program was entirely focused on psychology and intuition. Like, no joke. She said they had access to all sorts of studies, all sorts of approaches. It just was a wild, wonderful conversation. And I really enjoyed talking with her about all of it, because until then I hadn't realized wow, there are actually majors out there in PhD programs in this. So these fields of studies where they're bringing together, the mental health field with, things like energy work and spiritual perspectives and things like that, studies on psychic abilities and intuition. This is already happening. It is going to increasingly happen. If there's anything they have showed me and told me about life way out in the future, these fields will be very integrated in the future. Now, it's not going to happen overnight, but change is happening a lot faster than people think. And so a lot of our therapists out there and our mental health professionals, I can't tell you guys how many of them come to me for readings. It's crazy. I think they probably come to me more than any other person from any other type of industry, probably even more than I hear from people in medical field. That's the second largest group of people that I hear from wanting readings are medical professionals. So these fields, these groups of people in these fields are waking up. They know that there's something more. They know that there's something greater. So if you're wanting to blend your approaches and it's I want to, do this trauma work, but I also believe in Reiki and I also believe in, then go for it, do it. You know what I mean? These fields are already coming together, and the more and more of our mental health professionals who say, this is what my gut is telling me, this is what, feels right for me, the more who follow that, the more that we are going to see these fields sort of come together faster. So, these aren't futuristic practices. A lot of these practices are ancient practices. These are old practices. We're just bringing them back in higher and higher quantities and higher numbers. So I wanted to say that part first. It also, while I don't do any health readings or anything like that, what I can say is that the guides and Eric and Sam are all over here, and they're giving you guys a lot of love and a lot of support with your family and with everything that's going on. And they keep saying keep trusting and following your personal calling. And for anyone who's do I, take that leap? Do I pull these things together? If that's what you're feeling called to do, if you have all these curiosities and all of these, this inspiration and enthusiasm to learn about these specific fields, go for it. It could be that this is where you're going to find all your answers, and that's where your calling is going to be. So really let yourself lean into that a little bit more and listen to where your intuition and your inner guidance is trying to take you. Okay, so we're going to do one more. And this is someone named Taylor, who wrote back in April. And I'm just getting to this one now. So forgive me for my delay on that. She said, "Hi there. I hope you're doing amazing. I'm Tay, originally from Wisconsin and moved over to Minnesota, Minneapolis area. I first found you on TikTok and then have listened to your podcast and episodes, and I really can identify with a lot of the talking points that you've mentioned. I've been meditating on my own recently and had a really vivid experience that felt different from anything I've had before. I've had past life regression sessions, but this was on my own accord. It was very detailed, and I was able to recall a lot of it afterward. I believe that I may have connected with a spirit guide. She shared her name, a time period, and even some guidance for my life. I'm really curious to learn more about what I saw and was wondering if you offer any guidance around this. It was honestly one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. Let me know, and I hope you have such an amazing day. Thank you so much, Tay." Such a cool experience, and I wanted to just answer that and see what the other side had. And they really pulled me to kind of answer this in this way at this time. So what I was getting right away and what they're showing me is they said, it's kind of like you saw a divine connection. Like they said, it's like a window opened between you and the spiritual world. This person came through to you to share with you about their life because they know that you can reach them, that you connect with them, and that you can channel them. And that's something really beautiful and very, very fortunate for you that you can learn from this person. And first, they're going to share names, time periods, guidance on your life, etc. But in the future, you might get additional guidance. They may come through again and again. And they said, they were saying, look up the information, try to find this person, try to Google around and see if you can find them in old archives, records, things like that. You might be able to find them. I was even seeing like that show where they do like celebrity ancestry, and you'll see clips of it on TikTok and stuff like that. And they often have to pull up like ledgers and stuff like that, and they find people's ancestors in there. It's super interesting. And I'm always like, oh, that looks so cool. That's what they're showing me. And they said, but you're not crazy. You definitely had this experience. And they said these windows open for a reason. Sometimes it's because this is kind of the door or the window opener to our own gifts and our own abilities. Sometimes it's so that we can work with that person from the past or from this other lifetime. And it is a beautiful thing. They're giving you a green light and a 2 thumbs up, and they said, go for it, enjoy it. They're showing me the Wild Wild West too, and someone lassoing something. And they said, it's kind of like, hey, toss out that lasso, pull it to you. They said as well, one of the things that you can do is you can kind of like continue connecting with this person, or you can kind of reach out and say, okay, I want to direct myself to continue to connect with other guides who are here to help me or help humanity through me, or people who can help me on my own divine path, and set your intention always to connect with those of the highest truth, love, and consciousness only. Not that we have to, but it always just sets the vibration. And make sure when you guys, before you begin to do this type of work, make sure that you are meditating, that you're kind of clearing your mind, and that you are doing things like filling yourself up with appreciation and love beforehand, before connecting. That helps set your energy higher and brighter. The more you can walk around in that every day, the more you can be in a flow state, in creative and flowing form of energy, the better it's going to be when you try to channel and connect. Like your own brain won't get in the way, your own fears and perceptions, and you're more likely to reach people who actually are in spirit versus and get on that like higher frequency and that higher channel where all that fear, confusion, all that human energy isn't really like interfering. And I mean human as in like other living humans. Like you can pick up on their thoughts, and a lot of people do that and they don't realize that they're picking up on other people. They think it's a spirit, and it's like, oh, no, that's like your neighbor 2 houses down, and or your parent across the, halfway across the country, or whoever it is. Like, we have to kind of rise. It's hard to describe, but you always have to kind of float above that frequency so that it doesn't come in and interfere. And so part of the way you can do that is through meditation and clearing your mind, consistently practicing, and then also setting your intentions. But part of setting intention is also saying, what state are you in? What frequency are you in? And so just a couple tips there. Now, before we get going, I wanted to mention this week's energy. We are in the July 13th to 19th transit, which is Gene Key 62. This Gene Key is such a beautiful one. Actually, this one is all about moving out of the head and into the wisdom of the body. When you're going about your week this week, think about what it means to be precise. Precision means that we have to come out of the head into the moment. We have to be fully aware with all of our senses. This is the energy of deeply embodying wisdom and knowing how to speak it into being, how to act precisely the right way, the right time, the right moment. This is all about translating the unknowable into the knowable, translating the esoteric, the nebulous, the deeper knowing, the deeper downloads, the intuitive information into something tangible through an action or through a conversation, through information. People who have the 62 in their charts, they have a natural knack for this, but often what I've seen in people's charts is they might struggle with the shadow of it. So the shadow of this gene key, and you might wrestle with this week, is intellectualism. It's all about the intellect. Now, our society loves intellect. It prides itself on intellect. It prides itself on smarts. I just want to say, sometimes memorizing facts and figures and knowing how to solve certain math equations, like that's only going to get you so far, right? When we talk about intellect in our society, it's like we have a race to who can know the most and who can know it who can stay at the top. It's very hierarchical. It's very patriarchal. Again, it's often like all about like, what do I know here and now? But when you move out of intellect in the shadow frequency, which often shuts out other perspectives, right? Because it's always like overanalyzing, always thinking, always trying to figure it all out. It's obsessed with being like all knowing. And this can actually cause like analysis paralysis. It can cause this freeze response or a fight response. Like, think about when people's like intellect is threatened, how threatened they are, how defensive they are. Like think about how people have killed other people over intellectual property rights or patents or things like that. Like it's just kind of wild. And so what I want to say is with this current energy, we're moving out of that. So where do you need to get out of your head and into your body? Where do you need to be in the moment? When you are present in your body acts like this kind of almost like receiver for divine intelligence, for divine information. This is the information that is the deep knowing, deep wisdom in the moment, because there's what we can know with our minds, with our intellect, what we can study, what we can memorize, what we can figure out. And then there is what we know as the wisdom and truth in our bones. What is the moment revealing to us? When you sit in silence, when you're listening with your whole body, when you're resting in that moment, it's almost like the space and the air comes alive around you. And all of a sudden, you're knowing things that are unsayable and unnameable. But with this gene key, you will very likely have the ability, if you call on it, if you work through this, to channel or to speak that information through precisely and clearly and even in detail. So this is a great time to be able or to work on that ability to bring things that are just conceptual, downloads, ideas, even esoteric information, things like that, concepts into the physical through articulating them. But the key thing is, it's all about the frequency you're in when you articulated it. This is also called, the 62 is the gate of details. And so sometimes people with this, they get lost in the details. They get overwhelmed by the details. They're trying to speak information into being in the wrong way at the wrong time for the wrong person who's not open to hearing it. Like sometimes if you're not paying attention to where other people are at, you're not feeling into that moment and that wisdom in the moment. Sometimes you miss that clue that person isn't open to hearing it. They can't hear you right now. And they're going to jump into that shadow state of intellect and begin immediately picking it apart, over analyzing it. Maybe it'll conflict with their closely held belief system, even if their beliefs are not facts, right? They're not truth. They're what they've believed and practiced for so long. Their mind's going to go to war with you or to war within itself. And so we're not trying to cause that. We're not trying to do that, right? So just because we can translate something, a bigger concept, an idea, a plan we've made, a dream that we've had, something that we are finally bringing into being, a long held wish, a download that we've had. Just because we can say it and we can bring it into form doesn't mean the other person is always ready to hear it, doesn't mean that it's always the right timing. So when you are in the gift state of this, you get into this beautiful flow state and everything can become clear. The confusion goes away, and it's almost like you can make the complicated simple, precise, and applicable to the situation. But this is also about not just what you're saying and how you're saying it, but whether you're saying it in the right time, in the right way, to the right person, right? And where you're saying it as well. Are you in the right environment with them? So remember, use your body as the divine tuning fork that it is. Help it download the right information, the right answers, the right things in the right time. It's going to be able to tell you exactly through your inner wordless knowing, here's exactly what you need to do or say and when. Okay, so just keep that in mind. I also really think about this particular gate and this gene key as something that allows people to channel, but I see it more when people have it open. So actually in my chart, I do not have the 62. I have it undefined. So it's that whole channel for me is completely open. I have no defined energy in there. So I am, as an example of how this might work for me as a channeler, I have a defined throat in general, but that particular gate is not defined. And so for me, think on like breaking down details, right? Knowing something with your intuition, then being able to state it out loud. Well, I am able to do that, but why am I able to do that? Because I plug into my guides. So for me, like, for example, it makes me a great match for a guide like Eric or Sam, where they can come in, and because I don't naturally make that energy myself to be able to articulate what I'm knowing or articulate what I'm getting, they plug in and I just channel them. Right. And Eric is also he's a very visual guide. Like, he brings through a lot of visuals, metaphors, analogies. I get a ton of pictures, and he'll break down this really esoteric information, and he'll say, look, it would look like this. It would look like that. It would lay out like this. And I'm like, oh my God, that makes it so much easier to understand. Right. And he knows that that's how people might need to hear that in the moment. Okay. So what are you able to do if you don't have the 62 in your chart, if you don't have, or if you have it undefined in your chart? You're probably more likely to be a really good channel, or you need to be around people who do have it defined, and that's going to help you pick up that energy to be able to put things, to actually articulate what it is that you are wanting to say. Okay. You can also do practices to tune into the energy that you feel like you're kind of missing. Now, the good thing about having this undefined in your chart is that if you do have it undefined in your chart, again, you're more open with your speech. It also, though, at times might make it so that you feel like, I don't have this ability to put this esoteric thing into words. I don't have the ability, to kind of get out of that shadow of intellect and overthinking and all of that. I rely maybe too much on facts and figures and all of that type of stuff, and memorized information and things I've studied and learned in books, which isn't bad. It's just we want to have balance between those things and our inner wisdom and inner knowing, because okay, so think about the shadow of intellect. If you're thinking everything I learn in a book, I have to memorize all these things and this is what the truth is. What if someone put the wrong information in the book in the first place? You know what I mean? It kind of reminds me of, my podcast that I'm doing about women throughout history. Well, how do we know that what we were taught all the time was what the truth was? So you might be reading something and feel a grain of truth in it, or see a grain of truth in that piece of information, but your intuition might be telling you, there's something more here. I can feel it. Right? That's the difference between that shadow of intellect and the gift of precision as well. The gift of precision, when people have this, they're great communicators often. And again, everything has the shadow expression and the higher expression. So it doesn't mean they're like that all the time. They might feel pressured to speak sometimes and speak out of turn, or they might feel pressured to speak and suddenly they go into the shadow expression, and instead of leaning into what they know needs to be said in the moment, they might start to fumble over their words or stumble or things like that. Or they might overshare, they might over-explain, etc. And so it really depends on how it shows up for you. And that's something that you want to reflect on for yourself. And you might be noticing other people going through these things as well this week. Remember, with the gene keys in human design, as we go through the different transits, it's really just a beautiful opportunity to reflect and learn how to respond and not react. Really something I've been seeing as a theme is just looking at, the nervous system, and are you in fight, flight, freeze, fawn, or are you sitting in a secure, regulated state? Where are you sitting at? And it's not that any way is right or wrong. It's just kind of learning for yourself, when I am in these states, how do I show up in the world? And am I living out my spiritual purpose? Am I really being who I need to be here on the planet, or am I not? Am I kind of, reaching into those lower states and bringing out the lower expressions of this, from insecurity, fear, shame, judgment, etc. And it's really just about noticing, not judging yourself, and going, oh, okay, time to course correct, NBD. And same thing, with ourselves and others. As always, I share more about this in my Patreon group each week. I've started sharing the transits in there, with some prompts and some cool little updates. So if you want to come and join us in Patreon, you're welcome to. The link is in the show notes and in my bio. And we do have the Ascend tier as well. That tier is a couple spots open, and in there you do get monthly readings. These are mostly guidance readings for people who are really wanting support developing their spiritual gifts and abilities, and who are going through spiritual awakenings. Spiritual awakenings can really impact every area of your life, your relationships, your love life. They can impact your spiritual gifts start to open, your intuition gets stronger, and it might guide you to change some things in your life. You might start to feel called to start a business, change your career, dig into past lives. You might be starting to have experiences with visions in past lives and visits from the other side and all that type of stuff. You also may be starting to have changes in your social groups, changes in yourself, what you're eating, what you're drinking, things like that, how you want to spend your time on earth, what your calling is. All of that type of stuff can happen. I've seen a lot of people also getting the itch to move and travel lately and change their jobs. And so if that's you, that group would welcome you. Again, the monthly readings are really to support you with the things that are going on in your awakening and how it might be impacting your really, nitty gritty everyday life. And then your guides will come in and give you guidance to support you through that. So if you're interested, that is linked up in the show notes. We'd love to have you. We do have a couple spots open. And if you have questions about how anything works, you can always reach out. Again, keep sharing your stories and submissions for the podcast, all linked in the bio, and maybe they'll be featured on a future episode. Thank you, everyone.